7 branches that you can get involved in. So we will be, discussing how to get in touch with us and what role you can play within the organization. So that being said, I give the mic to Brother Wasi, who will be discussing what exactly is weed.
Okay, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Assalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. So the companions asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what will be the main reason that people will enter Jannah? And he replied, the main reason people will enter Jannah is because of their taqwa, so their God consciousness, to protect themselves from sin, and good character. And then the companions asked, O Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is the main reason that people will enter hell or Jahannam? And he replied that the main reason people will enter hell is because of their mouths and because of their private parts. So today we're going to be talking about the mouth portion, not what comes out of the mouth, like backbiting and slander and abusive language, but what goes into the mouth, like marijuana. And we all know that marijuana is primarily consumed through the mouth, whether it's vaporized, whether it's smoked, whether it's eaten through an edible. Now, the question comes to, what is weed? What is marijuana? And weed is basically derived from a plant called cannabis sativa. And this sativa plant has chemical compounds of THC. THC is what gives you that high feeling, what causes, your dopamines to be activated at a fast rate. Next. Okay, so why do people consume it? The main reasons people consume it is peer pressure. So, people, when I was in high school, a lot of people were doing it because, their friends are doing it, or they're in a bunch of social groups that are consuming marijuana. So they want to try it out. That leads to being adventurous with marijuana. So people want to see what the effects are of it, what happens when you smoke it or you eat it. Also, social culture. Social culture is a big one. So obviously in movies and TV shows, marijuana especially is romanticized. It's shown as something that, you can just get away from reality very easily. And another reason for people indulging in marijuana is it's a stress reliever. So a lot of people believe that if they consume marijuana or smoke marijuana, that it'll relieve them of their stresses, at least temporarily. Next. So there's a lot of adverse effects to marijuana. Number one being addiction. You can get addicted to the way it makes you feel. Not only the way it makes you feel, but also the taste of marijuana. But it also has brain altercations. It also has mind-altering effects because it's a psychoactive intoxicant. So it weakens over time. It weakens your main senses, and you tend to get hallucinations. It also leads to a lot of mental illnesses like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar disease. And obviously, it's very dangerous when operating a motor vehicle. I personally know that a lot of individuals who indulge in marijuana and smoke marijuana, and they tend to have hallucinations at times. A Muslim personally knows a lot of individuals who are schizophrenic from long-term use of marijuana. And you have to remember, brothers and sisters, that obviously these side effects and adverse effects won't be true to every single one of you. Everyone's bodies are different. Everyone is different in their own way. So a lot of people will react to marijuana in a different way. Even if you don't see it right away, you'll see it over time, right? So maybe you have been smoking marijuana for a while and you don't have any adverse effects, but that might not be true for someone else. Right. So I know this individual personally who actually has been smoking marijuana for a long, long time. I would say 5 years. And basically, this individual went to the States on a full scholarship, NCAA, for soccer. And basically, ever since he started smoking marijuana right before he left, it kind of just went downhill from there. He wasn't he wasn't be able to keep up in terms of grades at his school, so he lost his scholarship. He obviously his performance on the field as a soccer player, it deteriorated as well, and basically he came back after 2 years because he lost his scholarship, and he's just been really not doing anything after that. So it just there's a lot of times I feel like it's counterproductive for a lot of people because the cons just the cons just outweigh the pros. And although it may not be true for you or may not be true for someone that you know, a lot of times it's it usually outweighs the cons outweigh the pros. Next. I also wanted to give another story on being bipolar. Basically, this individual that I used to work with, she basically told me that she used to smoke weed or consume edibles every night before going to sleep, and that caused her to become very bipolar. Like she would switch her emotions, and her her whole demeanor would switch right away in a blink of an eye. Like for example, she'd be happy at one point, and then you would say something, and that would really rub her the wrong way. When in reality, when it shouldn't, but it would, and she would become frustrated and flustered and upset at you for no reason, and then she would apologize much later. But basically, she explained it that because she's been because she's become so dependent on marijuana, it actually, if she's not consuming it right then and there, then it would affect her mood. Next. And lastly, I want to talk about how marijuana is so you become so dependent on marijuana because, like I addressed before, the reason that being high makes you feel so nice is because you get access to a lot of dopamines in your brain. And basically, dopamines are this chemical compound that makes you feel good, right? So you get easy access to that without doing anything. Without, for example, going for a run, you can just smoke weed and you'll feel nice, right? So it becomes like a shortcut, and your body starts craving that because it's so easy. You can just smoke or vaporize, or you can just eat something, and your body will feel nice. So that's why people start becoming dependent on it. Like they can't have a good time without smoking marijuana or consuming any cannabis products. So that dependency is very dangerous, I would say. Next. Okay, so basically, like I talked about before, dopamine, brain reward system. It's obviously released when we're doing things like that are good for us, like sex, eating, sleep, and basically, like it's a shortcut. Marijuana makes it a shortcut to achieve dopamines in our brains. Next. Okay, so makruh versus haram. Obviously, this is something that a lot of people refute as to marijuana being haram, but I wanted to go into the reason why it's haram, and basically authentic. So I'm gonna go through an authentic hadith first. By Abu Dawud, and it was narrated by Salama radiallahu anha, the great wife of the Prophet, and also known as the hidden advisor. And this makes it clear. She states that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited miskir and muftir. So muskir is the intoxicating effect that makes you drunk, like alcoholic beverages, and muftir is what gives you the head high and changes your consciousness. So what we would call narcotics today. And basically, like marijuana being the muftir effect that is stated in this hadith would make it haram, right? Any intoxicant is haram because it puts you out of your state of mind. For me, someone that prays 5 times a day, I can't be indulging in intoxicants such as alcohol or marijuana because you can't pray for 40 days. I mean, you can pray for 40 days, but you won't be rewarded for those prayers for 40 days. So it becomes very counterproductive for me because I'm not getting the reward from my salah. I still have to pray 5 times a day, my salah, but I don't get rewarded for it. So it becomes very counterproductive for me. It is clearly stated in the Quran as well, in Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 90 to 91. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who have believed, indeed intoxicants, gambling, stone altars, and divining arrows are but defilement from the work of Satan. So avoid that, so you may be successful." So it clearly states here that marijuana is haram. And I just provided proof from the Quran and Sunnah of that. And then going forward, obviously, Salah is what makes us Muslim at the end of the day. If you look at a lot of religions, what defines us as Muslim is that we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala many times, but we have certain worship, which is called Salah, which we have to turn to Him 5 times a day, right? So that just keeps our connection with God, and we need Salah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need our Salah, but we need it to stay on that right path, to stay on that straight path. Next.
Great. Brother Wasi, if you don't mind, just to add on to what you were talking about. So yeah, that's like one of the major points that we wanted to emphasize in the presentation is the matter that if you indulge in intoxicant, it is said that your prayers won't be valid for 40 days. And just like Wasi was saying, that doesn't mean you abandon your salat, because salat has 2 merits. One is you're getting a reward, and one is you're canceling out the punishment that that you would get if you were to miss a salat.
Right.
So like Brother Wasi was saying, of course you guys are still going to be praying during that duration of the 40 days. But what is said is that if you were to indulge in intoxicant, your prayers won't be valid. Now, a lot of people will refute this and argue about it and say, how can you say this about weed, but not cigarettes that are killing people every year, every month? Again, like we were saying, this is a fiqh issue, so it's not necessarily, oh, what is healthier versus what is more bad for my lungs versus this and that, and all that. And if even after this presentation, if somebody has doubts about this specific point, then you guys can, inshallah, talk to a scholar in your locality, talk to him and ask him, is marijuana actually haram, or would it be makruh from you? Because a lot of brothers and sisters are getting the idea that marijuana is makruh and not haram. And this is a fiqh issue. And fiqh has no room for, you debating stuff based on your personal opinions. Fiqh is based on dalil, on evidence. And the evidence is clear-cut, and it's showing that marijuana is indeed an intoxicant. So I just wanted to add that point, and yeah, inshallah.
Okay, so conclusion is weed haram. It most definitely is. And yeah, next slide. So I went over the Quranic verse and also give the hadith. Next slide.
Okay, so I guess so yeah, Wasi, did you have any further points you want to elaborate on, or should we move on to Brother Saad's part?
Basically, I just wanted to emphasize that for me personally, like I'm someone that used to smoke weed, obviously back in the day. And the reason I basically gave it up, although it was quite occasionally, the reason I gave it up is because it was, like I said, it's just counterproductive for me, right? Like I got into, obviously I wanted to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I wanted to get closer to the deen. And I started praying 5 times a day, but I would pray 5 times a day, but I would also be smoking occasionally. And it just got very counterproductive for me because I wasn't getting the reward um, for my salah, right? And I was like, what's the point of this, right? Why I still have to pray, but I'm not getting my reward. So basically, just I would say just make the right decision. Consult people that have been through it, so you don't make the same mistakes.
Right.
It's not worth it, is all I'm gonna say.
Right. Exactly. Good point, bro. Jazakallah khair.
Wonderful.
So yeah, brother Saad, you have the mic, so you can whatever you want to discuss, you go ahead.
Thank you, Brother Fareed. Assalamu alaikum, dear respected brothers and sisters. I'm not going to do a quick intro about myself. My name is Saad, and I'm actually very, very excited to do this part simply because of the things I've seen related to this specific liquid substance. So I just want to give it back to Brother Fareed and also Brother Wasi for doing an amazing job. Definitely learned a lot there, Brother Wasi. There's always something more to learn, and that's why we have, you know, us as the Muslim brothers and sisters to teach each other and learn from each other and grow. So thank you guys for that. I'm going to be touching on the alcohol topic, guys, and going to jump right into it. What is alcohol? It's classed as a sedative, hypnotic intoxicant, which means it acts to depress the central nervous system at high doses. Drinking too much can lead to drowsiness, respiratory depression, and other various consequences. And what it also does is it really kills the brain cells. Alcohol is something that affects everything from your hair follicles down to your toenails. There's a reason why there was a prohibition back almost 100 years ago. That was considered the devil's elixir, and for good reason. And highly recommend any brothers and sisters that may or may not be abusing this substance to immediately stop, and you might learn a little bit about why you should during this presentation. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about the negative body effects and what is encompassed in all of that. So alcohol poisoning, leads to choking on your own vomit. It can lead to a lot of stomach related issues, heartburn. You are looking at something that is fermented, and for people that might not know, one of the most popular forms of alcohol that a lot of people like to drink when they party is called tequila. And most people know that some of the purest types of tequila, or the most expensive types on the market, actually are fermented worms. I'm not sure if any brothers and sisters knew that, which I personally think is very disgusting. So we're looking at something that's just overall very, very bad for you. And there's a reason why. It also wears down the stomach lining, and it increases the production of stomach acid, which can contribute to ulcers. This is very, very, very bad, because once you start getting ulcers in the stomach, there's a gentleman that I used to work with, about 3 years ago, who's actually gone through that. Sorry about that, guys. So there was a gentleman that I knew who had actually developed ulcers because he used to drink. He doesn't drink anymore, obviously for a good reason, right? Next slide, please. Okay, so the central nervous system gets impacted. It also impairs the coordination. When you're drunk, you're driving, everything sort of blurs out. Not speaking from experience, because this is something that I personally never really indulged in too much. I knew a lot of people that did growing up, and I seen how it really affected their personality over time. Everything, losing hair, stress. It also leads to high links to domestic abuse. Most of the people in the US, domestic violence is directly a result of alcohol, even here in Canada as well. So this is sort of like a global epidemic, which is called alcoholism. And, it destroys more lives than it actually helps. You know what I mean? And the crazy part is it's legal, and it's available on pretty much every main intersection now, right? So it's very, very dangerous. And it hinders new brain cell growth, and you need your brain cells to think, to function. Just like Brother Wasi was talking about the effects that marijuana has on the brain. Alcohol, they've been profiting off of it for a very, very long time, and now they're trying to profit off of marijuana as well. which personally, I think is wrong for both of them, because they're both very, very bad for you, especially if you're Muslim. Right, next slide, please. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Islamic perspective on alcohol. It's identified clearly as an intoxicant. It's haram. It wasn't always. There was various stages throughout our religion from the beginning until now, where it was okay at one point, and then it sort of it started getting a hand, and then officially it was declared that it's completely forbidden, and all for good reason too. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it clear that it brings out the worst of people, the worst part of yourself. There's a reason why it was called the devil's elixir. Back in the days, if you go back into like the medieval ages and stuff, a lot of people would like, some of the most nicest type of guys, or let's say the most honorable men, would turn into scoundrels when they drank this, right? So there was always a lot of people that were against it back in the day, especially women, because they would unfortunately, like mentioned, be the victims of domestic abuse due to people, their husbands or their brothers and stuff like that, getting drunk and stuff. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it very, very clear that this is just something that is just forbidden, and it brings out the worst in you, and you don't want that. You don't want to invite that kind of thing in. Another thing I wanted to mention is, if you ever go into the liquor store or anything like that, they have a special section called spirits. There's a reason why it's called spirits, because back in the day, they used to believe that evil spirits would enter the body whenever somebody consumed alcohol. This is going back like over 100 before modern day technology and even the Industrial Revolution. So it really puts things into perspective as to why things are the way they are with regards to alcohol. Next slide. Okay, now as Muslims, if we have indulged in like something like this, it's gonna affect your past, and it's gonna affect your present as well, right? One thing that we should always remember is that if we're going down the path of forgiveness and repentance, and it's okay to make mistakes. Everybody does. I'm not perfect. I wasn't always as focused on being a good brother and being a good Muslim and being a good husband, being a good father. There was a time where I used to spend a lot of time with people that were indulging in a lot of these things, and I'm not going to say that I didn't indulge, or I did, but what I'm going to talk about is what I've seen in my 34 years of living in Canada, especially in the Toronto area, Scarborough to be exact. So you see a lot of stuff. You see a lot of brothers and sisters, Muslim, non-Muslim alike, going through a lot of terrible things because they're involved with these intoxicants. And if we're striving to seek forgiveness, regardless of the sins, and continue to make an honest effort to avoid such activities and seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that's what we need to do. Because down the line, you're going to regret it. I have older cousins that have done a lot of bad things, and they've regretted it. And they said that, we wish that we listened to the deen much earlier on in life. We would have been much further ahead in life. There's a reason why things are in the book, guys. Please, to the next slide. Is it haram? Absolutely. Absolutely. They say, they ask you about alcoholic drinks and say and gambling, say in them is a great sin and some benefits for men. So again, this is talking about the time where it was okay at one point, because alcohol was okay in stages, and then it was basically taken out completely. I believe it was 3 stages. So the alcoholic prohibition went in 3 stages. They ask you about wine and gambling, say in them is great sin, yet some benefits for people. So there was some benefits at some point. Not so much anymore, because in ancient times, especially during the time when our faith was spreading throughout that region, population was much less back then. So obviously, it was a little bit more controlled. It was sort of isolated. But then when things started spreading and all that, so population grew and everything, it just started getting out of hand, and that's why it was outlawed in terms of the Islamic perspective. To the next slide, please. Okay, here we have some more verses from the Quran here, just to kind of give you guys. So this is like the 2nd stage, and then it's showing you the 3rd stage, exactly how it all went down, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said with regards to these 3 stages, and how we ended up in the final conclusion of it being fully haram and just completely forbidden. Next slide, please. Okay, so why is it haram? You know, there's really no benefits to it. You know, maybe back in those times, the process that they had might have been different in terms of fermenting it and all that sort of stuff. But now it's just done on such a big level, and you know, it's really more of a poison than it is, you know, a stress reliever or a relaxant or even just an intoxicant. It's literally a poison to this point, and you know, we can't really look at it you know, in any sort of a positive way anymore, because we did not really live in the times back then when it was okay. We can only learn from that. We can see what happened, and it's all within the book for us to see, just like it's stated, right? So we have to use these lessons, and the lessons that we have from examples. You know, I had a couple of friends that you know, I grew up with, and they went down the wrong path. They started drinking, and not only did they start drinking, but it was almost like the drinking had taken control of their lives. You know, they wouldn't want to link up if there wasn't a 24 case of beer. And you know, and me, I would have been just down to go grab some wings and just maybe hang out, but everybody every single time wanted to drink. So I had to kind of take a step back and sort of disconnect from those people. And I think it was the best thing that I personally did. And I also got to see from the sidelines how their lives spiraled out of control. You know, being the same age, I was able to get much further ahead in life. And you know, unfortunately, they weren't able to. They were still kind of stuck where they were, which is because they allowed the intoxicant to take over, which is exactly what happened in ancient times. Things started going crazy. And then the health side of it too, you know, my friends also ended up in the hospital because of alcohol poisoning, and not just once, more than one of them had. So it was a big eye opener for me, and just solidified to me why, again, this is haram, and the big impact that it has on people's lives. Next slide, please. Okay, so alcohol impacts our inhibitions and our norepinephrine in the brain. Where a normal person thinks about the consequences before committing such actions, alcohol diminishes that thought. That's basically why, you know, guys, you drink. If you ever go, you know, into a theater and watch one of those movies, and it's always those like guys that are just like raging drunk, just ready to fight. That's how it is, you know. Like you go to the nightclub areas, go past any bars. There's always some drunk guys that are getting ready to fight. And crazy thing is, most of those guys have great jobs. They come from good families, but the problem is this intoxicant just brings out this side of them that just makes them think they're all the Incredible Hulk. That like anybody that looks at them the wrong way or comes in their line of sight is automatically, you know, like, yeah, man, what's going on? And then boom, boom, and then next thing you know, there's a big fight going on. And I've seen this happen with friends. You know, I've seen friends fight each other just because they're drunk, and then it's just a big chaotic mess after that, right? So it's because they don't think. They're not thinking about the consequences. They're not thinking about what's happening. Just in that moment, basically their entire personality just sort of melts away, and they just sort of become this monster, and then they deal with the consequences after, and then they start crying and apologizing. So it's very, very crazy, the different kind of effects that just, you know, consuming alcohol can have, not just on the person's life, but the lives of people around them. So again, solidifying why it's haram. And the prefrontal cortex part of the brain is responsible for our emotions and behavior. You know, again, like it makes you do things and think things that you wouldn't normally do, which is another reason why it's haram, right? And especially in this day and age where we're so distracted by stuff, you know, being on this intoxicant is just going to add fuel to that negative fire of things. You know, you'll start falling off track. You won't be able to focus, and you're just gonna really, really upset the people around you that care about you that don't drink. So I highly advise any brothers and sisters that are listening to this that may or may not be, you know, indulging in this intoxicant. You know, get your questions answered. You know, don't be afraid to speak up and ask. There are other brothers and sisters that, you know, have done it and no longer do it. And the reason why they're here, you know, like myself, I've seen just so many examples. That's why I decided to be a part of MYR, is because I wanted to make sure that our brothers and sisters out there understand that it's okay if you've done it, and it's okay to talk about it, but you have to understand why it's haram and why you should definitely get off of it, for your own good and also for your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is above all else. Next slide, please. Okay, we're more open to engaging in criminal behaviors, thinking about stupid things, just doing stupid things, acting violent, outbursts, domestic abuse. Again, unsafe, physical encounters, most, sexual assaults or just, things, they all have to do with alcoholism. They lead back to that. It's sort of a chain reaction. Again, it changes people's, it alters the brain. And, scientifically, like I said, it affects everything from your hair follicles down to your toenails. And a lot of people do believe that there has been an agenda at play to make alcohol more accessible. There were people that were trying to remove it back 100 years ago because they understood what it was, but obviously they lost that fight based on the research that I've done. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people, suffer from this, and it's been going on for decades and decades, long before any of us on this call were even born. So for us to be able to understand, see the examples, and be able to share that message with everyone, why it's haram, why you shouldn't do it, because, we want to make sure that we all have a chance in life, right? We all have to look out for each other, especially as Muslim brothers and sisters, and we have to look out for even those who aren't Muslims, because that's just, setting a better example of what Islam is. We have to be that living example of the change we want to see in the world, which is the reason why I don't engage in any of these things, and, just keep myself busy to the point where I don't have to even be around people that do it. And I highly recommend people do the same thing. Next slide, please. Okay, self-help. Allah constantly talks about mercy and forgiveness in the Quran. He has constantly said that he is willing to forgive all sin. Our role model, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the perfect example of what we should strive to become. Follow him to the best of our ability and seek forgiveness for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even till this day, even though I don't indulge in these things, I still feel like I often ask for forgiveness just because, I'm not perfect. And that's the whole point. The point is that no one is perfect, but the more that you ask for forgiveness and you're aware of what you're doing and you're aware of what you say and what you do, that's, Allah sees all of that. Every time you pray, the 5 times, it's basically a form of discipline. It's to see, like, if you're able to multitask, if you're able to do that. So being able to do that, and for any brothers and sisters that pray 5 times a day, I think it's the most beautiful thing, because you're functioning at a much higher level than the rest of society, in my personal opinion. Most people don't, think about, certain things, and they forget all the time. So it's very, very important. So, but if you're somebody that's, intoxicated, not only do your prayers not count, but then you forget to pray, and then start straying further and further and further away. This is why we have role models like the Prophet, peace be upon him, and everything is within the book. So we just have to really model it and not be afraid to ask for forgiveness, and even speaking to brothers and sisters to understand how you can make that change. There's nothing wrong with transitioning and asking questions, and no one should be judged if they're trying to become a better Muslim, in my humble opinion. Next slide, please. Okay, some of the biggest sinners have been blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hazrat Umar was in the middle of going to kill the Prophet when he accepted Islam. Prominent celebrities in our time, such as Napoleon, Mutabiles. I'm not sure if everybody who knows who that is. One of my good friends from Thorncliffe was actually very, very good friends with Mutabile. Got to hang out with him when he was in Toronto, and then once in the Middle East as well. But this is someone who used to be a rapper. Hung around with some of the gangsters, some of the big dogs back in the day. And he transitioned over into Islam. Another gentleman is Loon. So there's a lot of celebrities that are shifting towards our faith, simply because they're tired of the sinful life, and they realize that there's really nothing in return, and the only thing that you can get in return is deeds, is the rewards for your deeds, right? Like you want to be remembered after you're gone, and you only be remembered for your deeds, not for what you had, not for how rich you were, or not for how much booze or weed you smoked, but really just because of your deeds. And celebrities with millions of dollars are realizing that they're missing out on something. There's a big hole in their lives, and they've been filling it with intoxicants and other things, and now they're all coming over to Islam, which is amazing. It's the most beautiful thing ever. And inshallah, we hope to see more people come into the faith. And at the very core of Islam is peace, like food for your soul. It's hope, right? We have that hope. We have it inside of us. We carry it with us every single day. I'm honored and privileged to be born a Muslim. And very, very excited when I see, you know, people reverting to Islam as well, or asking questions, even if they're not just yet. It just shows me that, you know, we have something special here. You know, fastest growing faith in the world. And you know, just very, very excited to finally be a part of helping spread the message and bringing awareness and stuff along with the brothers and sisters that are part of the MYR. This is just amazing. You know, I know this is the first event, but very, very excited for future events and being able to you know, share our knowledge with the world. Next slide.
All right, that was Jazakallah khair, brother Saad. That was great. Did you have any concluding points, or are you good?
I'm pretty much good. All I can say is don't do it. In big capital letters, just don't do it.
Right. Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Jazakallah, brothers.
Waikum, bro. So yeah, everybody, thank Jazakallah khair to everybody tuning in. We just have 2 more slides that are just pretty much an outro. You know, this slide is just focusing on Muslim Youth Revival as an organization or a team. And it's really filled with young individuals like yourselves, all the way from, you know, 16, 17-year-olds, you know, up till, you know, late 30s even. So we have a few teams. Our exec team already has about 10 members, so we don't really need any more execs. But if you feel like you want to be an executive and we can use your assistance, that would be great. Apart from that, we have 7 branches, you know, that you can get involved in. One is the mentorship team. So those people will be directly mentoring youth. You know, we have a fitness team, which is called the Brothers Defense Team. Apart from that, like, yeah, there's a reform team, which Brother Saad and was here part of, that will be presenting and doing all that. We have a Dawa team and the content team, you know, who created the PowerPoint. So there's multiple ways you guys can get involved, and we're providing MYRs as a solution to keep you guys even more busy, you know. So if you guys want to get involved with something Islamic, you guys want to help other people. A lot of people I talk to, they say that we can't really help anybody because we need a lot of help right now. We're already struggling, whether it's with intoxicants or some certain, you know, stuff in the streets. But that's what it is. Once you get busy with helping other people, that's when you guys will realize that that might be your gateway out of your situation. So that's what we really want to emphasize today. I believe there's one more slide. Yep. So we have a wide range of volunteer opportunities, as I just mentioned, and you guys can get in touch through our website, muslimyouthrevival.org. In terms of the mentoring, if you guys wanted to seek mentoring yourself, but you want to stay anonymous, our website lets you give an option. Has an option, so you guys can reach out to our mentors anonymously. So you guys can email us, right? But yeah, apart from that, you know, for whoever has questions, you guys can reach out to us too. And yeah, I just want to give a special thanks to the brothers that created the PowerPoint. You know, Brother Hassan and Mohsen and Sister Sara. And of course, the presenters, Brother Wasi and Brother Saad, spent a lot of time last few weeks, you know, rehearsing this. And inshallah, you know, since Brother Mohsen was recording it, we should be able to put it up for you guys on YouTube and, you know, maybe the Facebook and etc. So stay connected with us. We hope to be doing big things in the next coming months and years, inshallah. And we hope that you guys really learned something from this PowerPoint in terms of the fiqh of marijuana specifically, but also alcohol, because there's a lot of stuff that we learned just about alcohol that we had never knew, you know. So so jazakallah khair for everybody for listening. Barakallahu fiqh. And I'll end off with the dua. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina azaban nar. And yeah, that's about it, guys. If there's any I'm not sure if we're doing a Q&A, but if anybody has a question, you speak up now. Does anybody have any questions you guys wanted to clarify or something like that? No, you guys good? Okay. All right. So we'll end off with that. Brother Mohsen, I guess you can end the recording and the meeting. And yeah, jazakallah khair, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.